Mess. I'll be right back.
Howdy, y'all.
Oh, sorry.
As Eck goes exit stage left.
I gotta get out of here. I'll be back.
Russ, you wanted to touch on something. Now, for us who are hockey fans as well as baseball fans, we're coming up on July 31st, so it's a lot of trades. But the unusual things in baseball always interest me. And yesterday we had something I'd never seen before. So take it away, Russ.
Yeah, I mean, umpires these days have become sort of combative, but I'm okay with it because really they're just like an extra layer of entertainment now. And they always have been when they've argued with certain managers and players like Earl Weaver, like all those kinds of things. You know, there's Billy Martin, you know, kicking the dirt. We all love those kinds of things. Well, yesterday, one of those kinds of things happened with a player when an umpire was sort of telling Adrian Beltre, hey, you're not in the batter's box. Get in the batter's box. And
in the on-deck
circle. Sorry, in the on-deck circle. And to be honest, that's never enforced. You never see guys are sometimes in the on-deck circle. Sometimes they're to the right of it. Sometimes they're closer to the dugout, kneeling on the ground. A lot of times they're not in that on-deck circle. And Beltre got pissed off. And who knew this? I didn't even know this. The on-deck circle used to be painted onto the grass. Now it's simply a color form. He picked up the plastic piece and he moved it and then stood on it where it was. And so, like, he wasn't in the correct spot anymore, but he now was in the on-deck circle, and then he got kicked out of the game.
Excellent.
Well, okay, and
that's great.
And I cannot remember what Yankee slugger it was. I remember it was a right-hand batter. It may have been like Gary Sheffield. But you mentioned the batter's box. He would go into the batter's box, and he liked to stand as far away from the plate and as far back from the plate as possible. So he would go up first at bat, and he would erase the back line of the batter's box.
Sheffield was a batter's box eraser. Keith Hernandez. There's a bunch of guys that when they want to go deep in the box, they erase the back of the batter's box.
I'm pretty sure that one of the games the umpire said, no, you can't do it. Probably because the other team's manager said that's what he does. And there was an argument. Yeah. And you didn't get kicked out of the game, but there was an argument. That's like a little quirk in baseball. The other thing is the umpire, and this drives me nuts as a viewer. And I'm sure drives radio broadcasters like John Sterling nuts. The umpire who delays his call.
Oh, yeah.
The pitch will come over the plate, and 3 seconds later he'll go, strike.
Yeah, strike.
Right. And, you know, I was listening to a game on the MLB app, and Sterling says ball 4, and the guy starts walking to first base. And of course, then the umpire calls strike 3. He says, "Wouldn't you believe that?" And then he goes into the usual Sterling spiel. Yeah. It's so annoying. Just call the damn thing quickly.
But that's the thing about it is this is why you in Major League Baseball and in the NHL, this is why you still need referees and umpires because you can't have robots because that kind of stuff is just fun. It's fun for the viewer. It may not be fun for the players. But even for the guys who are covering the game, we enjoy that stuff.
One last thing, one little quirk and you know, I'm somebody who is on Twitter basically 24/7, and we're going to talk about the Andrei Markov thing, the news today. But Renaud Lavoie from TVA, he was I think the first person who tweeted out that Markov was not going back to the Canadiens, and he always tweets his first tweet in French.
Right.
And then we'll tweet the second one in English. Well, there is an English translation available. You just click the button on Twitter, and it will translate to English. I've been tweeting for a number of years. I'm of Italian extraction. I don't know why my tweets say translate to Haitian Creole or translate to Norwegian, which was I don't get it. I don't know. Like, I'm not using like Haitian words or Norwegian words. It's just it seems to be indiscriminate and not particular.
I have a solution for this. Renault's a great guy. I get that he has to cater to the French audience first. How about having 2 windows open? having the one in French there, the one in English there, ready to go. You click the one in French, you wait 3 seconds, and then you click the one in English, because the one in English always seems to take like 10 minutes, just in case the translation doesn't work. So I'm just saying it would help. It would help some people out, Renaud.
He's catering to a very particular and very annoying fan base that wants it in French and wants the advantage over the English speakers.
That's not cool. They're not an annoying fan base at all.
Yes, they are.
No,
They're very annoying.
By the way, as I sit here in my Quebec Nordique shirt, you can say this. No, that's not annoying. No, I mean, this
is that the Eric Lindros jersey that was never worn?
Well, no, that's what's interesting about this. Okay, so I wore this for a particular reason today. This is number 88, but this is on the back here. You'll see it's this, right?
Yeah.
So this is for those of you who remember Joey Sakic. Okay, wore 88 for a brief period of time, and it was kind of like a statement about the fact that he knew Lindros was going to end up there, but he wanted to he was pissed off about the way the whole thing was playing out. So he wore 88 for a while to kind of like be the first person to wear 88. So if Lindros came to the Nordiques, he wouldn't even have a number to wear, or he wouldn't have his number to wear, or whatever. So this is proof that Sakic can do things begrudgingly. So this is my thing as we get into the show today about Duchesne and such, that Sakic does have a history of doing things to be a little bit of a jerk, just like absolute.
I've really never seen it other than what you're displaying here.
Yeah.
I've never seen it. I'll be honest.
Truth. It exists.
Okay.
It absolutely happened. And I'm sure somebody's going to correct me and say it didn't, but I remember this story very well, and that's why I purchased the shirt at the time.
I mean, the jersey exists, so there you go.
Yeah, so I thought it was pretty funny. So anyway, but we will get into that, and I think it's great that I wish we had a French Canadian writer on our website. If anybody's out there wants to do it, I think it's great when he does it in French first, because it is what's cool about our league, that we have this.
That's fine, but I'm just saying let's decrease the lag time there, Renaud. That's all.
Yeah, I know. I like it though. I mean,
otherwise I'm going to unfollow you, Renaud. That's it. That's the I'm putting an ultimatum now.
Remember the PK Subban signing? I remember that very well, like when he was going in for arbitration and no one knew what was going to happen, all this stuff. And then the GM came out and gave the press conference in French, and I was sitting there, and I'm like, my 5 years of French paid off. I could actually, because otherwise, you wouldn't know the news. It was the whole thing was being done in French to start with. So that to me was interesting, picking up the stuff, and I'm hoping I wasn't getting anything wrong, but just trying to translate it well. So anyway, no, I like it. It's good. We're gonna do some interesting different things today. We're gonna get into some stuff. But one of the things I want to do is answer some of your comments on YouTube, which is not something that we've done before, so we're going to do that as well.
Okay.
I know.
Oh boy.
I hope one of the questions isn't what is YouTube.
Okay.
All right. No, that's not it. All right, here we go. So let's start on YouTube today, shall we? Let's go right to the comments. Then go
Let's do the intro.
Let's do the intro first.
Let's do that first. All right, ready? Here we go. It's pretty funny in relation to what I'm about to read you. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, July 27th, 2017.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I am Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And we are going to go to YouTube first today, because there have been some nice comments on there. There have been some comments on there. And to call them nice would be probably a little bit, some of them are nice. We appreciate them, the people defending us, and don't care if you guys disagree with us. That's cool too. You could, So let's start with Mike yesterday, Gaffney, who actually just wrote this 58 minutes ago on our thing, saying that Team USA should take a long, hard look at Brady, Tkachuk, and other 2018 draft eligible players. That was his theory, that you should look at the Olympics coming up. Why not go for these 2018 draft eligible players, who I believe are 16 or 17 years old right now?
Well, some are 17, yeah, and some, but so here's the thing. I mean, I don't think you have to do that. I answered him because he tweeted to me.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to do that. I don't think you're really having to look at, like, if you want to invite in Brady Tkachuk, that's fine, but I think you can get better talent from the NCAA teams. I think you'll get compliance there, and so I came out with a list of guys for that, and I came out with Jake Ottinger, Joey Anderson, Trent Frederick, Ryan Donato, Casey Middlestat, and Patrick Harper, just to sort of name a few. If you had those guys on your team, you'd be talking like those. There's some good players there. not, Kachuk's probably not really on the level of being able to play in this, but they might have to use someone like that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, it's young, but at least interesting,
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Kachuk will probably be part of that. Will he be old? He'll be old enough to be in the World Junior thing for sure. So,
well, he'd have to skip a year. He would. So, no, actually, this year I think he is old.
World Junior.
He's 17. I haven't looked at his birthday.
He'd be young, but he would be in the World.
He'd be young.
All right, then Manuel Biza says to us, all this negativity about USA hockey. I feel you guys would have known that. I feel you guys would have known that the USA would have beat the Russians in 1980. We weren't.
I want to bet with my brother. I bet on USA against Russia. My older brother thought he was going to snooker me, and we bet $10 on it. I won that, so it's not about that.
All I can say is, I was 12 years old at the time, and I was probably one of the 6 people who watched on MSG Network, it was USA Network back in the day, with Jim Gordon and Bill Chadwick doing the broadcast of the U.S. versus Russia at MSG, and them getting destroyed by the Russians. This was 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the Olympics? Yeah, a couple weeks. And it was the same team. They had cut down to their 22-man roster, and they got waxed by the Russians. Nobody in their right mind thought the U.S. Olympic team was going to beat the Russians. The Russians took them lightly. The U.S. played up to and above their capabilities. I'm just saying, the argument that we were making yesterday is that the U.S. Olympic team with AHL-only contracts, college players – to beat the Russian team, which is going to have players, some of them still in their prime who are in the NHL, like Voyanov or Kovalchuk or Datsuk.
It's going to it's
going to be an uphill climb. That's going to be a really good team.
This is a real uphill battle.
Really good team. So it's going to be, I'm not underestimating the U.S. Olympic team of 1980 or
no.
Or underestimating.
We had done the Hockey Buzzcast in December of 1979. We would have definitely sat there and said the same kinds of things. We would have said, man,
I would have said they were going to win. Mike would have said they're going to lose. And I'm not sure what you would have said, Ek.
I mean, assuming we weren't 12 years old or 15 years old or whatever you were at that time, Russ, you were probably in your mid-30s. But whatever. I think that, assuming all that, we would have – I definitely would have said that this is not a fair fight. This is a Canadian team. As an adult, I would have said this is a Russian team of pros going against a group of college kids, and some of whom, like Joey Mullen's not there. And I'm sure it would have been brought up. You would have talked about it. Joey Mullen for the USA was not there. He was probably one of their best players. He wasn't there for the Team USA in 1980.
Yeah. I was 17. I put up $10. That $10 would have represented probably 2 6-packs of Heineken that we would have had the girl on the corner go and get at the general store because we weren't old enough, but they would let her get beer because her mother would just get beer. So that I was basically putting 2 6-packs of Heineken on the line.
You're probably like that's $100 today. $10, pretty significant in 1980. All right, so no, I just think that this is a tough situation. It's a tough spot for Team USA. I'll root for them. I'll pull for them.
Of course, I'd root for them.
And when this gets to the Olympics, it'll be fantastic if they beat a Russian team.
And when Tim Thomas is in goal, I'll feel better about it.
Yeah,
it would be awesome. We would love it. And I'm just saying, there's realistically, just as as pundits or whatever we are here, we have to sort of just say what we feel. And for now, it's like I think when we put Canada and now Russ put Team USA above the Vegas Knights, perhaps, but not but the Russian team is better than the Vegas Knights, so or below the Vegas Knights. So that was the deal. So yeah, we had that whole thing yesterday. So that was pretty good. Check out the show yesterday. I'm sure you did because you were commenting on it. But if you didn't check out the show, check it out tomorrow. Now, here we go. This is Cuban B, who's taking us to task here. He says, if you don't know, don't make stuff up. Why would Russ say that Spooner is not bad on faceoffs? 38.9% last year and 42.4 career average. Also spent most of the season on the wing. This type of stuff happens all the time on the show. I don't expect them to know all the exact stats, but I would expect them not to pretend. We'll get
That's not pretending. I'll tell you what. I'll back it up. Here's the thing.
Go ahead.
So some of the better guys now that we talk about center-wise are around 52%. The real sharks are at 75%, but there's very few of those guys.
Yeah.
If you're telling me a young player like Spooner is 38 or 42, that's not terrible.
Yeah, it's not that bad. And also, being that he played wing a lot, also Now, if they
And
don't score on faceoffs, you should just throw out that he was pretty good. It happens all the time with Russ and Eck in particular.
And the fact that he played the wing means he wasn't taking a great deal of faceoffs. He's probably
fifth most draws on the Bruins last year, but that's not.
But what I'm saying, Eck, is
that 4 centers, so that means like
it mitigates his percentage, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because he's playing the wing most of the time, he's probably taking. He took 80 faceoffs for the year, and if he lost 55 of them, then the percentage is going to be out of whack. But it doesn't mean if he was a center and taking the draws all the time, that he would be at 30-some-odd%.
So Rob Falcone had a statement for us. He said, I can't believe the show started right away. Keep up the good work, boys.
Don't worry, we made up for it today.
We don't want to hear all the crap before you guys start the show. Well, we've gotten different comments on that over the years, and the fact is that if you go to the, quite often, I don't know if we do it right now, right? But when we used to post the podcasts, we would post them without the intros in the beginning on iTunes, and then when we did that, sometimes people wanted to hear the intro. So it depends. We get both ways on this thing. We try to keep it relatively brief. So we'll try to do a better job with that in the future for sure. But I think sometimes we're not living in the the busiest of hockey times right now, so there's that too. So we do our best here on that stuff. But we could. It's a fair comment, I would say.
They're all fair. I mean,
everything's fair, and we really do appreciate you guys, watching this, watching the show and all that stuff, because honestly, it's really been like one of those situations where it's grown now to the fact where it's almost like 1,000 views a day in this time of year. And if you go back to this time last year, you would see that we were less than half that. I mean, so in a year, we've doubled our viewership for the summer months, which is really exciting for us. So we appreciate that you guys are a part of it. All right, let's see what we got as far as I'll pull up. When we're gonna do one more here, we're gonna do one more group of comments here that were commented on the day prior to that. I'm sorry, just get rid of this here. All right, I hear that. All right, so okay, I am on the wrong day. Sorry about that. I apologize. Here we go. Yes, this is the day we want to do this one. All right. Comments. Oh, this is a good one. This is when we get to this. All right. So people took me. Robert Leonard this is a guy. I'm not going to say his name. Robert Leonard was awful lateral movement, can't stop pucks and shootouts. He also has never had a solid decor. So we talked about Robert Leonard the other day after he signed. I am not the biggest fan of Robert Leonard.
Right.
And I agree. I agree with everything you're saying there. Honestly, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Go ahead, Mike.
The Sabres defensive core last year was abysmal. I mean, Ristolainen and McCabe are two good young defensemen. I don't think that McCabe – I mean, in some instances, McCabe was played as a number 2, and I think at best he's a 3-4. He's a second-pairing guy. But they forced him to play in that position because, you had guys like Cody Franzen who were injured. Josh Georges is slowing down. Zach Bogosian is a bust of the highest order for the amount of money that he's making. Yeah. And that's the problem. Now I think this year they've added Antipin. Kulikov is gone. They've traded for Scandella. I think they're a little more deeper.
They're a little better now.
But their problems are not over with. And the problem is that Brendan Gooley is a young kid who they're probably going to start in Rochester. Georges has got a year left in his contract. I think Bogosian has 3 years left, which is an albatross of a deal. Right. But if they play them on the bottom pairing 5-6, it'll be one of the most expensive pairings in the league. But it probably won't hurt you as much. But they're probably going to end up playing Bogosian on the second pairing because he makes so much money, and I don't know if that's a good thing.
Yeah. He also brought out that X-Men and Fantastic Four, which we did talk about before the show, are owned by the 21st Century Fox, not Marvel Studios. Fox purchased.
So that's probably why we don't see the crossover.
Marvel Comics sold them in the 90s. They also at that time. I checked in on this too.
Spider-Man was once sold to Sony, and I guess they got it back.
Spider-Man. Sony had Spider-Man, and then they bought it back. Marvel. So you see Marvel buying it back. And he also put that Doctor Strange is Jack Kirby's best work in Marvel Comics, in my opinion. And I do agree that Doctor Strange is an incredible.
Well, X-Men Apocalypse was on TV as I was flipping through the channels last night, and it said in association with Marvel. So
here's the thing, though. In association. Okay, so they probably borrowed the license. Here's the thing, though. We didn't rip or talk about Jack Kirby. Mike was just talking about the on-screen adaptation. That's different. It's always different.
Yeah, and I wasn't saying it was bad. I just said as compared to like Iron Man and some of the Avengers movies, Captain America and Winter Soldier, I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was great, but I mean, okay nowadays is pretty good because there's a lot of crap out there.
It's true.
So finally, we had a lot of comments on our McDavid's
versus
Matthews stuff. Most of which was thrown at me because I said some things about this. So the sales post 612 says Matthews has literally played one season. Eck is comparing him to Crosby, the best player of the past decade. So ridiculous. I'm not really comparing him to. If I was comparing him to Crosby, I didn't mean to be comparing him to Crosby.
I don't think that didn't come across to me at all.
Yeah, like I think he's got the ability to be in that league, as what I said, and he's got the chance. I do think that beyond just the one season he's played, just seeing you can just tell when a guy is a guy comes in the league at his age and is dominant like that. Yeah. That's just insane.
I think we all agreed that Crosby was still the best player in the league that episode.
Yeah, Crosby's the best player in the NHL right now, and McDavid is challenging as the second best player in the NHL right now in my mind. But I was just saying, eventually, I think Matthews could pass them. But I don't know if he'll ever pass Crosby. And I think I even said that, but I think he could definitely pass McDavid. He'd have to win a lot too. All right, that Evan T. Young, Eck is out of his damn mind. You got to be out of your goddamn mind. That's from. If he thinks the fact that Nashville gave up Seth Jones for Johansson doesn't come into play, you don't give up a top pair blue liner before the age of 22 if you're not ready to commit to a player you get in return. That's why Montreal immediately signed Duran to a big time deal, and we don't even know if Sergachev is close to Jones. I think that my co-host would agree with Evan. And just about the first part, especially that I'm out of my goddamn mind.
No, not
that's because they deal with me every day, so they know that's for sure the case.
But I do think, as I said on that show, that if you're trading Seth Jones, who is a commodity, who is a top pairing defenseman, who will probably play in this league for 10 to 15 years. You are not trading him for somebody that you're just going to quibble about a salary when he comes up on a free agent deal. You traded him to get a number one center. You determined that Ryan Johansson was that number one center. You made the deal. He performed well. He helped get that team to their first Stanley Cup final. And now you're going to quibble over $1 million? Not a chance in hell. You're going to sign him, sign him for exactly what he wants. You'll negotiate, but in the end, you're going to lock him up because you gave up a very valuable cornerstone to get him.
Yeah,
I agree.
Listen. I mean, what I said is just from my dealings and my connections with Nashville.
Sure.
I didn't think this was going to be the slam dunk that everybody assumes that this is going to be. And I do know that. Also, I've known a lot of the Ryan Johansson stuff too through Nashville and Columbus and different situations. So I really it seems to me like I would be very hesitant to go to this big 8-year deal that people are talking about. Just because, and like I said before, you give up a player like Seth Jones, who's a great player, but you get back a guy like this, but you have to realize you get cap space in this deal too, and that's something that does count. I'm not saying that's their first choice. I think they would love it for Ryan Johansson to prove this year that he's a number one center for sure. And some will say he proved it last year. So I just need I need a little more time.
And the Predators may be hesitant, but in the end, maybe it limits them to 7 years instead of 8. But in the end, they're going to have to get a deal done.
I'm not hesitant, but I get why you're hesitant. I mean, that's fair.
All right, so you said yes. Feel free to comment on our YouTube videos. In the future we'll do some more of this. There are some obnoxious comments we're not going to get into, obviously. But if you have something interesting and you want to take us to task on something, that's totally fine. That's what this is all about. But we don't think we're right all the time. At least
Hey, to the obnoxious ones, thanks for watching, man.
Exactly. All right. Doing this, I got a text that Markov could be heading to the Panthers. I wrote earlier today. Markov with the Capitals, Markov, I'd heard Markov with the Leafs mentioned. The Capitals were the team that I had heard the most recently. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to look into this a little bit more, but I just got a text that popped up on my screen here. Keep an eye on the Panthers. for Markov. I'm going to text some people out on that. But Markov today for the news is that he announced, and he's holding a press conference as we speak, actually, 2 o'clock right now, that he is not returning to Montreal Canadiens. And my blog, I wrote a couple reasons why we thought that happened. We've discussed this before on the show. Him representing himself, I don't think was a great idea here. He overplayed his hand a little bit here, I think, in thinking that Montreal really needed him, especially after the Drouin trade. I think he really thought that they needed him. And Montreal is playing hardball, and that may or may not work out for them. I mean, this is definitely not a no-brainer. I mean, there's part of me that, as a Montreal Canadiens fan, growing up, that really thinks that Montreal should just suck it up and give Markov 2 years, because they're in that bad of straits as far as their defense goes. Montreal not doing this. I'm not willing to jump all over Montreal yet, but they've got to show me what they're going to do instead of Markov. That's not Mark Streit in my mind. So they've got to come up with something else that makes more sense than Markov for 2 years.
Well, I mean, I think that with what they have on hand right now, I mean, clearly he was only going to take a 2-year deal from Montreal, and now he may have to take a 1-year deal somewhere else. But I mean, they've got Petrie at $5.5 million for another 4 years. They just signed Alzner to the 5-year contract, making close to $5 million, and obviously Weber. And then they have Schlemko, who they acquired from Vegas, and Ben, who they acquired at the deadline last year, and then add Streit as a power play specialist. Really, I mean, I'm sure they wanted him back, but probably, as they said and as we've said, on their terms. Yep. And, after playing almost 1,000 games in Montreal and having a really good year last year, I'm sure that Markov is saying, I know you've been paying me pretty good money, but I think I've earned a 2-year deal. But they clearly don't feel that way, and they've gone their separate ways. Now, I think he's got an opportunity. Russ and I have mentioned Washington. Toronto is, I'm skeptical on Toronto because, I mean, I think it would be an improvement for them, but they just don't have the room right now. They'd have to trade bodies off of their 50-man contract limit to open up space to bring in Markov. But I think it's possible. But this Florida thing, if you look at them, they've got a couple young defensemen in Matheson, and now they didn't get rid of Jason Demers, but they have Matheson, they have Petrovic, who's not young. They have 6 defensemen.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Pisic's on there.
What's that?
Pisic.
Yeah, Pisic, Yandel, Ekblad, Demers, Petrovic, and Matheson.
So I mean, he helps them.
He helps.
But the other thing is, again, you're still like juggling up again from what you had a year ago, which is what we didn't like a year ago. Yeah. And so now you may have 1 or 2 pairings that are familiar with each other.
And if they do sign him, Russ, then I'm starting to question whether they're fearful about Aaron Ekblad's concussion problems. Because
that's a possibility.
Yeah. I don't think you want to put Matheson, who's a young defenseman, as the 7th guy now who doesn't play all the time. And all those other defensemen are players you want to play all the time. So, I mean, I haven't heard anything about Ekblad not starting training camp or anything of that.
No, I haven't heard anything. I'm assuming he's okay.
But I think that this would be sort of like, if it's a 1-year stopgap sort of insurance against somebody getting hurt. But I have a feeling that Markov is going to want to go someplace where he's going to be what he's been with Montreal for most of his career, a top 4 defenseman who's going to get minutes, who's going to get power play time, at least on a second pairing. And if that doesn't happen, then he's going to go someplace where he can get that.
Yeah. I mean, I put some calls in or texts in here to my Florida sources to try to see if I can find anything else out. We'll let you know as the show goes on here.
Make Florida better, but I'm not sure it's the best fit.
I honestly think that the best fit is Washington.
Yeah, I agree.
I think. I mean, remember Washington? They lost Shattenkirk, who was part of their. They brought him in for a reason. They need that.
You've lost Shattenkirk. You've lost Alzner. You've lost Nate Schmidt.
That's pretty significant players.
There's a Russian contingent there, obviously, with Ovechkin, with Kuznetsov, with Orlov. So there would be a comfort zone there. And they're a team that conceivably could contend for a Stanley Cup, even though there's been a lot of defections over the last few months. So that would be a landing spot for him. If he really wants to get back at the Canadians, if that's a motivation, then a team like Boston or a team like Toronto would be the way.
I don't think that's a motivation for him.
He probably isn't, but I'm just saying if that was
it's definitely a better story. It would be a fun story to see Markov because he's been such a staple there. But I think that what to me the most fascinating thing about this is you have, I think, two people. This is like knowing a boy, like a guy friend of yours and a girlfriend of yours that do belong together. And Montreal and Markov, they really do belong together, and because they do honestly need each other probably more than they need other things, and they're just not working it out. Is going to be strange to see, and how that plays out now.
Well,
and Markov could end up in the KHL too. I mean, that's also possible.
You just said it, and there is a report from Arpan Basu of the I think he's with Sportsnet. Markov is going back to play in the KHL.
Yeah, I'm not shocked about that.
Not shocked at that.
As I put on my blog earlier today, I think that's really the case, and I think that's where it makes the most sense. Now, Ken Campbell, we did a story with him a couple days ago with the Hockey News. He has another really good one. He's on fire lately. This is good because McDavid came out and said about the Olympics he was really upset the NHL players aren't participating in the Winter Olympics this year. And there are other players who feel this way, obviously, too. I mean, players do love the Olympics. There's no
sure. I mean, we expect that.
It's a great event. I mean, I covered it. It's the most fun I've ever had in the sport. It's incredible to be there, to be a part of it, to be in that city while this is all happening. It's really exciting.
They didn't love it enough to not guarantee a lockout in 2020, right?
That's true, and I think that, and I still don't know that. I still don't necessarily. That's been something we've talked about many times, and what I've heard about that is that was something that was sort of mentioned in casual conversation, but never actually offered to them, like a completely if you do this, we'll let you go type thing. They were never put to that. That was never really put to the test. What they would have said. I don't think that it was right for the NHL to even bring that into it, but that's my opinion. In my opinion, it was just asking for bad will where they don't need it, moving forward. But Ken Campbell's article is if star players really want to go to the Olympics, they should get involved in collective bargaining. And as a person who has definitely spent a lot of time, too much time over 2 seasons or 3 seasons actually studying the NHL and collective bargaining and how this works, I couldn't agree more with Ken Campbell on that simple statement.
Well,
I mean, that's the reality of it. That star players are the ones that collective bargaining affects the most in some ways, and in other ways it affects them the least. But they are the ones who it's all being done for.
If this was such an issue with the Players Association, with the star players, I've heard Donald Fehr interviewed, I've heard Gary Bettman interviewed, that the Olympic situation was not brought up in the last CBA. It was involved in the CBA previously, right. But in this one, they were so driven to get a deal that they forgot something as important as the Olympics. No, it's only become important after the fact because the players thought we're not going to give up anything for this, and the NHL definitely wants to go to the Olympics because it's no, they don't. If they're going to stop their season for 2 weeks, lose money, and have their players injured, it's not a benefit to them.
But they did at the time because the next Olympics at that point were in Vancouver, right? So let's remember, I mean, there was no question.
But it doesn't matter. You have to look ahead, Ek. You look ahead with everything else in the CBA. You had to look ahead for that too.
There was no way the NHL there was no way that could work for either side at that point, I think, in negotiations. Because I remember it being discussed, but it was like everybody knew they were going to Vancouver for sure.
No, it was 2012. So the next one was Sochi. It was 2012.
Sorry, it was Sochi. Right. I'm sorry. No, it was, but they knew they were going to Sochi too because they knew the Russian players were going to force that issue. So to me, that's why it was never, and.
But no. What it is, Ak, is that and I think that the NHL has sort of managed this sort of masterfully. They have turned the Olympic participation into a negotiating point for the next CBA, whether it's in 2020 or whether it's in 2022, because of the fact that all of a sudden the players are saying, "Oh, this is something we have to do." Okay, well, if you really have to do it, then give us something for it. That's what Bettman tried to get with what happened in the last few months. They didn't bite. Now it's something that we have to get some. We have to go to the Olympics. Okay, well, give us something for it. That's what the owners are doing.
For a lack of a better term, it's become a political hot potato. This is what happens in Washington all the time.
Yeah.
Let me just update what is coming out from this press conference or this. Markov told reporters that he passed up NHL opportunities to go back to Russia and play in the KHL. We'll probably see him at the Olympics. That's according to Elliot Friedman. Friedman also reports that Markov said he would have played for Montreal on a 1-year deal, but the Canadiens declined. So that changes the story a little bit, and that sort of puts into focus that once they signed that strike deal, they pretty much wrote off Markov. Yeah,
which is what we were mostly thinking. I know Eck was hearing some other stuff, but the thing is, here's the way I think about it. When Markov couldn't go back to Montreal, he looked at the writing on the wall and said, I'm not going to sign a 1-year deal and miss the Olympics. So I have plenty of money. I might as well just sign the KHL and play in the Olympics. That's what he wanted to do.
And if he gets a contract like Kovalchuk got, with like 200 million rubles or like $3 million bucks,
I mean, and how do we know that this contract in the KHL won't have an out at some point this season where he could still join an NHL team in the playoffs?
Well, that's Russ. This is a quote from Arpan Basu. I'm not closing the door, especially on Montreal, and I'm not closing the door on the NHL on whether he may return next year. If he signs with the KHL, he signs for a year, and
unless he had an out. Sometimes guys have outs.
Right, exactly.
Like Sudoku. Not Sudoku. I always call him Sudoku.
So Andrei, take care. All right, next subject.
Right. Okay. I'm going to call a little bit of foul on some of this, just from some of the things I heard. I might be totally wrong, but I talked to somebody very high up in Montreal, and that 1-year deal, being the Canadians, turned that down. I am not 100% positive. I think we might be looking at a little bit of a revisionist history to paint something in a certain way.
It might be spin. It could be very well be spin.
It doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
Maybe the 1-year deal wasn't to his liking, so he didn't acknowledge it?
It could be that. Yeah, it could be that 1 year. Yeah, I mean,
remember what I said? They probably would pay 1 year $750, and maybe he didn't like that.
Right, maybe that 1 year, and he would. Yeah, I mean, because there was definitely something to the fact that Markov wanted 2 years and Montreal wanted 1. That was absolutely 100% happening.
Montreal may have been playing on the heartstrings of Markov, that he didn't want to go anyplace else. And if they offered him $750,000 after he scored 36 points in 62 games last year and was on their top pairing with Shea Weber, if I was Andrei Markov, I would tell the Montreal Canadiens to go screw themselves.
Sure, but we don't know that that's what happened. We don't.
We don't. But I'm saying, okay, the guy was making, I believe he was making close to $6 million last year. He's played almost 1,000 games. He just tied Guy Lapointe, I think, second or third in terms of all-time Canadians defensemen in terms of points. You're going to, he's 38 years old. It's a guaranteed contract. But you're telling me that the Montreal Canadiens are, if they offered him a low base salary,
maybe they offered him $1.5 million and he still didn't like it.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. If you want to sign to a 1-year deal, pay the guy what he's worth. Pay him $5.5 to $6 million.
No, you can't pay that.
Why not? It's a 1-year deal.
No, you're crazy.
Okay. They've got the cap room, Russ.
It doesn't matter. At 38 years old, nobody's paying.
They're trying to do other things, though. So it's like they're
failing on those, so they may as well pay Markov.
Montreal's far from done with this year. I mean, it's hard to sit there and talk about what Montreal is going to be like yet, because we.
You know what this reminds me of? I just looked it up. This reminds me of Patrice Brisebois, who played for Montreal forever, and then all of a sudden went to Colorado for a couple years. Then he went back to Montreal. Like, I could see Markov coming back to Montreal.
Oh yeah, no, Markov loves in Montreal.
Yeah, as long as they pay him.
Now you know how old Brisebois was when he left the first time? 33. And he came back, and he was 37 and 38. Markov's 38, so that is a cutoff for a lot of teams. It is.
Now, getting back to this other thing for a second with the Olympics. So in this article, Campbell is going into basically is saying the NHL is stupid for not going to the Olympics. He's basically saying that they're missing out on the boat. They're missing the boat here, that the NHL needs to go to the Olympics. And I've gone on there. I basically said that I don't think the NHL needs to go to the Olympics that this time around, and I think that I really don't think that people are quite understanding like the actual reality of the fact that these Olympics are in South Korea and what that means to the players. Like deep down, like I mean, as much as the players sit and say they want to go to the Olympics, where these Olympics are in South Korea is a great country and it's a perfectly friendly country to Americans and all that stuff. It is still the North Korean situation right now is very, very real.
I think that's relatively low on the. I mean, maybe it
isn't two players I've talked to. Like I've talked to a couple top players who said that their families and wives and like that were thrilled with the fact they weren't going to these Olympics.
Okay, but
and they're going over there, and it's dangerous. I mean, it's very dangerous. So
it is very dangerous, and I'm saying I'm sure I would believe it's a concern. If I was going to cover it, I would be concerned. But I think that in terms of the NHL, I think it's low on their list. I think it's more the fact that the IOC is not giving them anything in terms of any kind of break and in terms of any kind of, using being able to show highlights, being able to.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that to a degree. But here's what I'll say about that. This is a car the NHL never wanted to buy. Okay, so then when they're going in and negotiating a deal here, knowing that, so the NHL could play as much hardball as they wanted to, and they could get some things that might help them negotiating in the future to China, right. And sit there and say, remember we played hardball, we didn't go to the last Olympics, but they didn't want to. That's where I think this thing all falls apart. Like I don't think that they really wanted to go. I think they.
I also think the time zone thing plays a big problem too.
It does, but if it that can be made to work. I do think it's more a matter of the owners looking at this like we're sending some really, really valuable commodities to a very, very dangerous part of the world.
Right, and I think in 2022, one difference between South Korea and China is that with the announcement of those preseason games a few months ago, Gary Bettman and Donald Fehr went to China. Normally, that's not an event that you would say that the head of the PA and the head of the NHL go there. I'm telling you right now that more than likely the Chinese are in on this with the NHL and the PA, and there's going to be better and more favorable treatment towards the NHL from the IOC because honestly, the Chinese hold the whip hand. They're hosting this thing. They want the NHL there. The NHL wants to go there because it's an emerging market. They're getting television viewers. They're getting, there's a movement, KHL teams, CWHL teams. It makes sense for them to go to China. There's nothing really to be gained by going to South Korea. Nothing. And Connor McDavid came out today and said, well, he's feeling upset about the fact that they're not going to the 2018 Olympics. Well, I can think of 12.5 million reasons why he shouldn't be upset.
Right. No, I agree. I do know from like at the World Cup, when the World Cup was ending and talking to the guys when it was over, there was a definite feeling of like, this was fun. But McDavid and Matthews wanted to be pulling over the jerseys of their countries, not the North American jersey. And I think they really got that. I sense that they got that. They felt that way. But so I really do. I do get what McDavid's saying. I do think there will be a point in time at which and I think you're absolutely right. I think there's no chance they missed the Olympics in China.
Whoa. I mean. That 2022 is when the CBA expires.
Right.
No, that's so
it's gonna have to be negotiated in this time.
Right. The only way that they'll miss the 2022 Olympics is if the IOC is intransigent and they will not make any concessions, and that's why I think getting the Chinese on board is going to help get something done where the NHL has some benefit to go to the Olympics.
It's just such a big market, and as much as I think sometimes that it's overblown that the Chinese market is so very different, despite the fact that there are 1 billion people there. It's so very different than the U.S. market. And
let me ask I'm going to bring up a ridiculous question now.
Yeah.
So 2022 happens. Let's say the CBA negotiations break down. Are the players all going to pay for their own insurance?
That's a really good question.
Well, okay, wait a second.
My bet would the NHLPA would pay for the insurance and let them go
the war test.
Yeah, they'd figure out. They cut some kind of deal. I bet you. That'd be my guess. But I thought about that too, like because we did have. Remember, there was a year. There was an Olympics in the missed year, right? I mean, if I'm right, the missed year. Didn't we have? It wasn't.
No, 02 and then 06. It was 04 was the missed year. 04, 05.
Thinking of there was, but it wasn't the year. Right.
No, I don't think they missed an Olympic year.
No, it was
a lockout before that where they missed half a season.
It was 94 because
yes, that's right. So 94 where they missed half a year. There was a holdout at that.
Right. There was a Olympics 2 years apart because they wanted to go to alternating winter and summer.
94 they started the season late.
Right. In January, I think. No, it was
earlier than that.
December.
I think it was January. I think you're right. It was.
No, I think it's December. I think it was December.
But yeah, the thing is that and this is the thing. The opt out is in 2020, and the CBA is through 2022, so it's through the end of that season. So the Olympics would happen before the CBA expired.
Okay, so this is not, but they could opt out. Yeah,
I mean, if the NHL doesn't get concessions from the IOC, then they could say we're not going to China either. And that's, like I said, that's the whole gambit with the Chinese is to get them to put leverage on the IOC to give them something that makes it worthwhile.
And that's why I think at this point in this next CBA, it's going to be negotiated in.
Right, and
it probably should be at this point.
And the owners has successfully with passing on the Olympics in 2018. This is what Ken Campbell. I understand from a hockey fan and from a hockey observer's point of view, you want the best of the best to play in the Olympics. Yep. But in terms of the NHL, they're taking all the risk. They're reaping none of the benefit. And the only way that you're going to have Olympics going forward in the future is if the NHL benefits from it. And, they're interrupting their season for 2 weeks. They're taking all the risk. Guys like Tavares got injured. And, that's not right. It's just not right.
Right. I don't disagree with you at all. That's all the time we got for today, guys. Great show as always. Thanks, Russ. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for watching, subscribing, liking, disliking, commenting, all good stuff. Please feel free to let us know what you think. And
you like me. You really like me.
Yeah, they like you more than they like me. So anyway, remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you soon. See you tomorrow.